ahead and introduce myself and then turn it over to Laura. But I'm Casey Hitt. Welcome, everybody. I'm one of the co-founders of Wisdom Tree Collective and a spiritual director and a friend of Laura's. And in my training program of spiritual direction, I'd only had one class in dream work. And I was starting to work with more and more people in spiritual direction with their dreams. And so when I found out that Laura had a certificate in it, I was thrilled to pick her brain, to join one of her dream work groups, to go to a retreat of hers, and to call her on the phone when I needed help. So she has been a mentor for me when it comes to working with dreams. So I'm thrilled that Wisdom Tree Collective can host her tonight for this intro to working with your dreams, and as well as she'll tell you about an upcoming group that she will be offering following this. So I will stick around after the time for a few minutes. If you have any questions about Wisdom Tree Collective or any of our other offerings, I'm happy to try to answer those for you. So I'm going to have everyone mute so that we can cut down on any background noise. There'll be times that she'll have us unmute, and I'll turn it over to her.
Well, I am thrilled. Wisdom Tree Collective is just the coolest outfit, and it has been growing for a while. And it kind of suddenly burst upon the scene is the way it felt. So like all of a sudden, this fully formed, amazing thing, like was poof, it was there. And I know that took decades, but lots of great things are happening there. So, and it's based in Nashville, for those of you who are from Jonesboro, and which is where I live in Jonesboro, Tennessee, up in the corner. And so just kind of a shout out to Wisdom Tree and Casey in general for lots of interesting things if you are looking for, and online as well as in person. So, and I just wanted to say, always it's mutual. So I learned a lot from Casey too, and we just have talked a lot, and I learned a lot from everybody. Dreams, we step down into that, and we are instantly into this shared reality where it's nobody's the guru. And if somebody's acting like a guru, back off, because you're the only one who can really get a sense of what your dreams are about, because you will feel it. There's sort of a felt aha about that. And so I have some notes I'm going to look at from time to time, but really it's good to see all of you. The reason I feel so strongly about this as a spiritual practice is that it's natural spirituality. We are given dreams. We dream about 5 times every night, whether or not we remember them, and they are doing incredible work. So even if you never recall a dream, you're dreaming and they're working for you. And you can, and one thing I'm not going to go into tonight is like sort of in terms of brain science, what's going on, but you can get hooked up to one of those, whichever one with, EKG, whatever it is. And you can watch this action, this healing action of dreams in progress as the anxieties are kind of resolved. Everybody knows you get good ideas when you sleep, and you wake up feeling better about things you went to bed anxious about. And that's a really, obvious neurological process. But it's also deep wisdom work. And that's the part I think is so interesting, is this incredible source of wisdom that is crafted for you every night, and it's up to the minute information about who you are and where you're going and why you're here. And it's that little headlight for the next step. And sometimes it is the big blazing light that says, here's the whole thing. This is who you are and whose you are and why you're here. Occasionally you get 1 or 2 of those. So I want to say, it's maybe not everyone's first practice, but it's really good to be educated about it and just know that this is going on, even if it doesn't feel like something that is really beckoning to you as a personal practice. But just knowing about it is helpful. And those of you who are in training, I know some of you are in the spiritual direction program, people, if they know that you are willing to listen to a dream, they will just bring you stuff, and it's a beautiful thing to watch that process. So here's what I want to do tonight. I want to give you a few basics about and this sounds so dry, but Jungian oriented dream theory. Okay, so why Carl Jung? Well, let me tell you the three things I'm going to do. Then we're going to work with a few basic ways to work with your dreams so that you can do this tomorrow morning. Okay. And then we're going to do a little bit of work in a group. So you get a sense of what group practice is like. And then here's some questions. All right. So there is a handout that I'm going to send you right after this is over. So you don't need to take notes about, 3 of this or 4 of that. It's right here. Okay. So just sort of roll with it and you'll get all the notes later. So I'm going to do a little bit of PowerPoint talking so you have something to look at. And then we'll drop back into each other, and then we'll just sort of move back and forth like this. The first thing that I want to go back and talk about is the name Carl Jung comes up. And so I'm trained at the Hayden Institute, where we sort of put together Christian mysticism and Carl Jung's way of looking at things. And Carl Jung I'm not going to go into a lot of theory here, but Carl Jung was a Swiss psychotherapist. And around the turn of this century, he was working with Freud, and he put language on realities. He put psychological language on realities, which to that point had always been talked about in spiritual terms. Because what he wanted to do was say, look at this incredible process that's going on. It's not only something that we use religious language about. It defies dogma. It's built into the human system. And so let's use some other language about this that kind of reaches down into kind of a neutral way. He was a medical doctor, a psychologist, and he really wanted to be able to talk to the scientist about this. And it's really helpful to have this neutral language so that we don't kind of trigger each other's. I mean, oh my goodness, I love religion so much. It's so fascinating. And boy, do we ever set each other off, as we start talking. So that's why I'm going to use some of his language to describe these spiritual realities. And so there are 2, I call them the vast and holy concepts. So I'm going to click into the share screen here. And everybody see that? We're good? Okay. So this is kind of the whole deal right here. Okay. And I hope when you see that, you go, what in the world? And then you go, oh, I know what that is, right? It's a butterfly chrysalis. And these 2 big concepts that I want to start with are really pictured right there. And so the first one is the whole idea of, oh, wait, there's an unconscious. All right. That means there is more going on than our waking minds are willing to see sometimes, or can even guess at. But there's stuff moving under the surface of that waking life. And so in a minute, I'm going to show you some slides that help us break it down into how Carl Jung really wanted to talk about this, which I think is so helpful for those on a spiritual path. But it's like gravity. We never think about it. It exerts its force on us. It exerts its force between us and among us and on everything else. We never think about it. And so I always like to credit my dear friend Joan, who's about 97, who did a lot of Jungian work, wrote her life story in iambic quatrameters or something, quatrains. And she's like, honey, you got to always tell them about the unconscious. You have to tell them about it. I'm like, Joan, thank you. Yes. So here's a shout out to Joan and just saying, wow, there is this thing that is moving and alive and connecting. And it's not just there, it's there with a purpose. All right. And the second word that I'm going to put out there that is a Jungian word is, what's it up to? It's a process that he calls individuation, which is a long, fancy word for turning into yourself. All right. And it's exactly what that butterfly is up to. And interestingly, I would like to point out for those of you who haven't memorized the life cycle of the butterfly, that at that moment, what's going on in that chrysalis is that caterpillar has turned into green goo. It is totally a mess in there. When we talk about order, disorder, reorder, that's disorder going on in there. That's what it looks like. There's a purposeful process at work. And that's why I get so excited about dream work, because the dreams are coming straight from the unconscious, working through this kind of this thing. And we'll get, this sort of God image inside us is a way of talking about it. You can call it the self, but this divine kind of dream that dreams itself in us. It's turning into, to use spiritual language, God's dream for us. That's what we're up to in this life. And it's not something awful that we don't want to be. It's that fulfillment of like the wildest, deepest, most satisfying experience of being yourself. And that's what the dreams are trying to help us do. All right. And so those are those two concepts. One, there's something bigger than what we can see at work in us. It's part of our created nature. It's not God. It's a part of creation. All right. And there's this thing in us, kind of the, the divine image in us that is guiding that process. And so those are the two kind of basic things that I want to stress in terms of what's up here. And why does Laura keep talking about this? Okay. So I also have learned that the best way to talk about dream work is to actually tell you a dream. So let's start with a shared dream. All right. And this is one I had years ago. And I'm just going to talk you through this. And you can kind of let it wash over you. There's not going to be a quiz. So I'm just going to tell this dream. And you just take it in, because that helps ground us in a common experience. All right. Which is what we're doing that. So, okay. In this dream, and I'll just say I was in my 40s when I dreamed this, and I'm not going to give you a lot of context about this. So in this dream, I'm walking along a dirt road in a little pine forest, and I see all of a sudden a black dog appear coming out of this sort of little stretch on the left, and I'm a little afraid of dogs sometimes, and so I'm kind of bristling in this dream. But he seems to be a nice dog, and he seems to want me to follow him. So I follow the dog, the black lab, and he takes me into this little house, this little cottage. And I see there's a man. He's wearing a kind of, he looks sort of disheveled, like a disheveled lumberjack. Okay. And he's cooking at a kind of stove, he's got his back turned to me, but I see who he is. He is somebody who in waking life I used to teach with. And he's really he does not look a bit professorial. He's just a mess. And as I get a little closer, I see what he's cooking, right? Which are turnips. And he's got this big pot full of turnips. And as I get closer to talk to him, I realize, wait a minute, he can't see. He's blind. And this is a shocking moment in the dream. Oh, he's blind. And I'm not quite sure what to say to him. But then he turns and he knows who I am. And he goes, I was given blindness to see past my books. And that's where the dream ends. All right. So that is a dream we can kind of refer to if you want to here together. And I guess for me, there were different takeaways at different times. That whole idea of getting past the books. I mean, I bet you all have that feeling of experiencing that moment when you no longer, it's like putting down the Arthur Murray footprints, and learning and knowing you can dance, it's like getting a sense of where you want to go with a recipe, right? It's like, oh, I get it. And I think in that dream, one thing it meant to me was Laura, quit sweating the the academic part of this. All right. There's some part of me that needs to get past relying on that wall of books in order to understand what's going on and to experience heart and soul and real transformation. And so where that's going for me now, I think, is the piece that's not in the dream, which is about service. It's about sharing what's been cooking. And I love the pun. Did y'all catch that? The turnips, what turns up is something that is to be shared. And so I'm kind of wanting to invite you to think about what it is that has turned up for you in your life that needs to be shared, that's asking. And that seems to be something like a turnip. Now think about a turnip, right? It's mostly hidden. It's under the ground. It's not something that's readily visible. There's some greens, up there. But in terms of what that thing really is, it's an underground food. It's nutrients. It's this beautiful thing that must be dug up. You got to go digging, the little leaves tell you where to go. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to work on that. And then you dig it up, and then you got to work on it, and then you got to cook it. And dream work, often cooking is this sort of alchemical imagery for all the work we do, all that heat and transformation and energy and stirring that we put into working on what it is we've been given from the inside of our souls, and then that we can serve up for another person. So that's something I want to just go, well, now, where's all that coming from? Because at the time that I had that dream, I was just beginning to start working on sharing dream work. And so it was extra helpful at that time. It was right before probably my first big moment where somebody had asked me to come and share some dream work at, this retreat. And the dream was just kind of gently saying, like, go blind, it's not about what it's like release that phrase, release the outcome. That's important to do when you're showing up as yourself, is not sweat where that's got to land quite so much as what you bring to it. And so that was a really helpful thing for me right then. But don't you get curious about, well, how does that work? So for those of you who are going, how does that work? I want to give you an image. And so what I want to give you is a picture of like how Carl Jung described the human psyche. That means all of who we are. All right. And so I like to use natural images rather than complicated diagrams that put me to sleep and confuse me. Also, I understand them better and I like talking about them better. So if you downloaded that little field guide I was talking about, you'll see that I am into the water lily. I think this is a great image. And I challenge you to find your own because they're kind of everywhere once you start looking. Okay. So what I want you to imagine is, the whole water lily. We've got the floating on the surface, the lily pads and the flower, but there's a lot more going on down below. So what I want to do is just talk through this, kind of using these pictures to describe how we're made. All right. And also a little bit about practice. All right. So I kind of like to think of those lily pads, the stable kind of everyday part of that's always there, as being like our waking ego. That's what we know about ourselves. You say, who are you? Point to the lily pad. That's the stable thing that's always on the surface. Okay. And that is super important. That is how that plant feeds, right? An ego is not a bad thing in the Jungian way of talking about things. We need that. That's how we show up in the world. And what how we present, and that's important. And I'm thinking about that beautiful flower as like a dream. All right. So what if that dream, I mean, these dreams, they come up, they actually do, depending on the genus and species and all that, they open at different times, but they are open at night, and so you can see those. And that idea of, well, how's that happen? Where'd that come from? Is looks like they just land. I think a lot of times people, when they talk about dreams, they have this idea that the dreams like fall out of the sky, like from up there somewhere, they land on our heads. But really, I want you to think about this as being something that comes from within. It comes up from the bottom. All right. So if we could kind of think about ourselves as something that has deep roots. So here's what's going on right beneath the surface. This is that part of the psyche that Carl Jung calls. He says there's two parts to this unconscious. Well, there's more than two. There's three. But he goes, right underneath that pond that's that pond water, that's your personal unconscious. That's everything that you don't know about yourself. Maybe you forgot it. Maybe you never knew it. Maybe it's something you don't want to see and you kind of repressed it. All right. And there's all kinds of stuff going on in there. There's fish and gunk and leaves and muck. And mostly the thing to look at are those long, beautiful stems. Because what's going on in your psyche, as well as in this dynamic, okay, so swimming around, there's all the stuff we don't know about ourselves. It connects us to this dirt at the bottom. All right. And that's where, that's that bigger thing. Because when you think about it, I just want you to imagine this. That bottom of that pond is connected to all the dirt in the world, right? It's connected to every piece, every surface of the earth, anywhere. It's so much vaster than we can see. And if you sort of think about, all right, there's what I see about myself. There's that lily pad. There's stuff I don't know about myself, but it's right under the surface. That's just all about me. But then I'm connected to this big, vast, connected thing and he calls it the collective unconscious. And again, it's a big word. You don't have to know it, but it just means, oh, wait, we are all connected to this vast imagination. And I kind of don't mind calling that the imagination of God, right? It's just every possibility that exists. And really, you can't picture that. I mean, even the world is just too tiny for explaining what that is. But every metaphor breaks down at some point, right? And ours is about to crash. But that is the concept. And in that collective unconscious, all these energies and all these it's alive. I think that's the most important thing to know. It's alive and it is full of energies. And how do those energies from the personal unconscious and what organizes this dream? And this is where the metaphor gets a little weird, but there's a root down in there. And I just want to use that as a picture for a moment of what Jung talks about, that God image inside of us, maybe the Imago Dei, the Christ light. We have lots of names for this, and everybody who talks about meaning has something that they name that reality inside us that is so much bigger than ourselves, that connects us to that sense of divinity and that is purposeful. All right. And so there's that root, and Carl Jung calls it the self with a capital S, which is tremendously confusing. But that is that thing that says, here's who you really are. It's like the seed that turns into the oak. It knows who you are and why you're here and what it is that you really long to be, that you can't quite name. But there's times when you get restless, or you find yourself kind of lost, and there's some sort of guidance that comes along. The self is organizing that, is the idea. And it's hard to talk about. but it's kind of tremendously important, and it connects to the roots of everyone else, which is important. And I'm going to give you some ideas in a minute. I kind of want us to pause for a minute and think, I'm going to get us back here, stop sharing, so we can look at each other. Where have we heard that before? Who else says that? You're welcome to throw out some ideas about, this sense of, okay, there's something really deep in us that seems to be divinely guided, that directs all kinds of stuff, that gives us dreams. Does that feel like anything else you've heard or read in any traditions or wisdom literature? Yeah, Todd.
Yeah, I know that one of the Hindus, Paramahansa Yogananda, their tradition is to discover the self with a capital S. So they use the same word, and it means the self that's connected to all, that knows that it's connected to all.
Great. I'm glad you have some Hindu insights for us. Thank you.
That's not a lot of them, but just a little piece. Yeah. So his work was called Self-Realization.
Yeah.
With a capital S.
Thank you. Anybody read Richard Rohr every morning? He's constant, right? he talks about this all the time, and he quotes all kinds of writers and saints and mystics and scripture and poets, and it's like, oh, I'm really not telling you anything you never heard before, right? This is just another way of talking about it, which kind of unifies. Because Carl Jung did so much with dreams and the unconscious, it's really helpful to have a little bit of his work. But I think about I think St. Paul does this too. When in Ephesians, he talks about the length and breadth and depth and height, knowing the fullness of God. I think that's what he's talking about, is exactly this. Celtic Christianity with Duns Scotus and Gerard Manley Hopkins and Irenaeus talks about it. The whole idea of epiphany is kind of connected to it when we talk about what does that really mean, besides the historical sense of it. We're looking about, okay, there's some star that's really speaking to us. There's something compelling that says, go this way, come here. There's something to discover here. And it changes them so much that they're willing to, the wise ones know to follow that. They're moved and changed by that Christ child, by the discovery of that light, the source of that light. So it's kind of everywhere, and it becomes kind of fun to go, oh, same thing, and just sort of notice that as it comes up. All right. The thing that makes this different, I think, and that is so seriously, this is not a bunch of ego desire, like, oh, I got to be me, and there's suffering involved here, y'all. There is deep commitment to a process. This is what you find you're drawn along. You're going to be blind, like I had to kind of go, okay, there's part of me that needs to be blind here. It's not just fun and frolics and showboat tunes or something. It's seriously demanding, utterly rewarding work. So just the invitation to keep your ears open for that. I'm going to go back to a couple of things, and this is me putting words in front of you. So kind of apologies in advance, but it helps. Let's see. Oops, share. There's this wonderful teacher, and he used to teach at the Hayden Institute, but one of the books you can read that's really good is called The Wisdom of Your Dreams. And he was a UU minister in California. And he taught a lot. And I'm just going to read these 10 assumptions to you because it's so helpful just to have it spelled out. All right. So without a lot of carrying on, I'm just going to do this. He says, okay, all dreams come in the service of healing and wholeness. That is a bold move for anyone who's ever had a terrifying nightmare. To be told that It's just mind-blowing. But they're getting our attention and they're giving us something. One thing he doesn't say here, he says it later, is he says, all dreams, this is number 6, speak a language of metaphor and symbol, and I'm going to add emotion. Our attention is grabbed to see what we need to see. And so a disturbing dream is there to say, no, really, this you need to see now. All right. And it's memorable because of that emotional charge that goes into that. No dream comes to tell the dreamer what he or she already knows. If you wake up and go, I know what that's about. Okay, stay with it. There's more. Dreams have layers and layers and layers. It's never just one thing. All right. So that's a great thing. You can go back to a dream over and over and over, and there's always something new. But this is that important thing I was saying. Only the dreamer can really know what that dream's about for them at that time. All right. Because you're going to have this physiological reaction. You're going to go, oh, aha. There's going to be a sense of a lift or a light or something. And maybe a kind of holy dread, in that, where you go, something's there for me. That doesn't mean you completely understand it, but it means follow that. And one thing he likes to say is that aha is because you already knew it. Down in that pond water part of you, okay, that personal unconscious, you already knew that, which is why it sparks, okay? We just said this, no such thing as a dream with only one meaning. Metaphor, symbol, and I'm going to go emotion too. That's our mother tongue. I mean, you go back and you look at those caves, of Lascaux, and you see these gorgeous images and the feeling that those hunts are painted with, those animals, those people, even the raw, how moving those handprints are on those rocks in Australia. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, ooh, we get that. There's a symbol there. There's a metaphor there. There's a sense of human meaning. It's about meaning. And so metaphor, symbol, those are the images, and then the emotion goes with it. Okay, this is amazing. I love this part, and I believe it too. I wouldn't give you this if I didn't believe it's true. All dreams reflect inborn creativity and the ability to face and solve life's problems. Another way of saying that is, if you dream it, you can deal with it. All right, no matter how challenging that might be, they're pointing you towards your own creativity. Another thing dreams help, when you start working with dreams, you're not going to only feel your creativity moving and problem solving, that kind of thing. You're going to be moved by compassion. And that's what I think the next 3 are about, is that this is why we do this together as well as alone, is because it actually makes the world better. It expands us. It makes us more true to that deepest reality in the universe, okay, that love of God. So all dreams reflect society as a whole, as well as the dreamer's relationship to it. That means they're part of that dream is coming out of that deep, rich, connected place. So when one dreamer shares a dream, everybody gets something out of it. That's one reason we do this in a group, right? It's really amazing. I mean, I've been doing this 25 years. It's never not been true. It's astonishing, okay? All dreams, that they are these soul poems, all right? They connect us. Working with dreams regularly improves relationships with friends, lovers, partners, parents, children, and others. I really agree with that. We get challenged by our shadows is one thing that happens. First comes the shadow work. First and always comes the shadow work. What is it that I accuse others of that I've got? This is log and speck work, and that is never over, okay? It's like, oh, yeah, that speck over there is my log and my eye that needs to be worked on first. And so we'll get that in varying degrees of emphasis. And one thing I'll just say here, because I'm not going to mention this elsewhere, when we are doing shadow work, most of the time we think of it something negative about us. Negative. It's a bad thing. Somebody's greedy or somebody's bossy or somebody's, has evil, mean streaks or whatever it is. But there's this thing called a golden shadow. Have you ever had someone in your life that you would just gaze at and think, they're just the most amazing person in the world? They have everything. If I could ever be even just just the tiniest bit like that. Okay, what you're looking at is yourself. Okay. And it's like, I can't possibly be that is kind of the clue to go, no, actually, you are that. And it is much harder to work with your gold. You can call that gold than it is to work with your grimmer aspects, because you have to accept how radiant you are. That's hard to do. You need other people for that, I think, a lot of the time. Which is where he's going with this last one. Working with dreams in groups builds community, intimacy, support, and begins to influence the society as a whole, which is sort of my great hope, is that as we even talk about it, as we just allow there to be a little dream literacy in our lives, as you just sort of listen to people tell the dream and listen with respect, and kind of not let them laugh it off, but just go, like let them know you're just listening. You don't have to say anything really about it. Then you're giving something of deep value to those folks. And so just an invitation to do that. So, okay, you've got a dream. Here's these assumptions. Oh my goodness, how do you even start? All right. So what I want us to do right now, I'm going to say there's sort of basically two ways. All right. One is just association. So I'm going to turn this off for a minute, because we're going to do this right now. So get up. If you have some paper with you, a little pencil, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a dream image. This is the unconscious. Okay. And if I'm sitting with you in a circle, everybody would pull something out of it. Tonight, I'm going to pull one thing for all of us. All right. Because we do not know what this is. And I'm just going to pull something out. And what we have here is a ladder. Okay. A little wooden ladder. All right. Here's what I want you to do. First, for just a minute or two, I want you to just jot down everything that, like, describe a ladder. Like if you're talking to someone who has no idea what that is, a Martian, like, what's a ladder? What does it do? Okay. And you can just, I guess this is about 4 inches long. Okay. So just explain what a ladder is, what it does, any associations you have with it. Also, like ladders you have known. Okay. Your own history with that. Just take a few minutes, just bullet points. Okay, you can also notice what comes up for you, like ladders that you know about in stories, songs, myths, all that kind of thing. Scripture, any other ladders beyond your own experience, but that are part of your sense of what ladder is all about. You see how this could go on a while. Okay. So this is one way you can play with a dream. You wake up, and there's more about like how to cultivate some dream, recording, and we can do some more of that at the end if you want to talk about that more specifically. But you just sort of leave some space after you've written your dream down, and you just go back in there and you just look at every image that kind of grabs you, and you start just saying, oh, what is coming to mind for me about that? And you just wait and you see what rises that has a little energy. So look at the list that you just made and go, did any of that kind of give you a little, oh yeah, like that's something that is coming up. Maybe it's about an experience you had with a ladder, or maybe it's, something that you read about a ladder. Maybe it's getting pinched by a ladder that folded up or something. Okay, so circle the one or two that kind of stand up for you. And you're going to have a chance to talk about this in a breakout in just a minute. So while I would love to hear what everybody has to say, mostly you're going to just talk to each other. Okay. I am curious if you had sort of a combination, if you found that you had a combination of like, well, what it is, how it works, what it's for, like ladder moments in your life. Okay. And anything else that came up in stories, like for instance, I put down Jacob's ladder. All right. That dream. All right. So if those three sort of levels are common that, when you start listing, you'll probably find. All right. So that is one solid thing, is what does that make me think of? Because a dream is going to say, it is going to give you something that you relate to. So probably, I'm guessing, so like when I circled mine, one that I circled was this. I have 3 boys. They do dangerous things safely. They've been doing that all their lives. So there was a permanent ladder. They would just scramble up to the roof and back, and, alarm ladies on the street. Well, boy, did your mama know you were up there? And they're like, yes, ma'am. She lets us. But there was a lot of, kind of acclamation to the ladder in my life there. And I thought it was kind of fun. Ultimately, nobody ever got hurt. And then I also, the one that I circled was that wonderful story of the paralytic on the roof. And it didn't say there was a ladder in that story. In my version of the story, there's a ladder. Somehow they got to get up there. And so I put that. And that has something to do with rooftops, both of them, I'm noticing. So if you start playing around and give it some time, dream work takes a little time. You slow down, you go, oh, what's going up with me that has a little energy? And that's the thing you need to tune into. What's got a little something for you? All right. So that'll get you a long way, and you can make ladders, and you can paint ladders, and you can climb ladders, and you can, hang up art on ladders and repurpose ladders, and you can do all kinds of stuff with ladders to kind of just connect with the ladderness and explore that. Okay. Because that image, if it has some energy for you, it's going to be inviting a little more play. But there's another way that you can work with dreams, and this sounds like crazy talk sometimes, but we all did this when we were kids, and writers do it all the time. And that is, we start talking with that image. So we start talking to the ladder. And we want to know, wait a minute, here's something we need to know. Everything in the dream is a part of you. So that ladder is showing up in your dream to show you an aspect of yourself that you wouldn't maybe notice any other way. So how do you talk to a ladder? Well, you can dive right in, which is fun, but there's a wonderful shortcut, and we're going to do this now. So flip your page over, or, find another space. And I'm going to show you this groovy shortcut. Okay. And we call it the 6 magic questions. And then somebody else added another one. which turned out to look like a number 8 the way I typed that in. So sorry. Bob Haas is a dream worker who teaches and writes and has a free downloadable book online if you want it. So we're going to start with this ladder, and I'm going to just call these out to you. You don't even need to look at this. In fact, let's just not look at it. I want you to look at I'm going to ask you 6 questions. And then I'm going to ask you one more. What I want you to do, and this is the hard part and the fun part, is I want you to take a minute, and whether it's this ladder that you're looking at or the one in your imagination. If you're doing this with a dream, you do the one in the dream, all right? And what I want you to do is, you're going to just hold that in your mind. I'm going to put it down. Close your eyes, and I want you to just sort of hold that image in your mind. And then I want you to move a little closer and a little closer to it and start noticing this ladder you've got in your imagination. And I want you to kind of sense, I know this sounds kind of funny, but kind of get the vibe of that particular ladder, just kind of sense, how big is it? How does it feel like? What's it made of? How does it feel? What would it feel like to be that ladder? And then I want you to slip into that image and go, that is a part of me. And so I am going to ask you 6 questions, and I want you to write down the answers, speaking as though you are the ladder. All right. So, first question is, what are you? Describe yourself. You can just do bullet points if you want. What are you? Describe yourself. Next question, what is your purpose or function? What's your purpose or function? What do you like best about being yourself? What do you like best about being yourself? What do you dislike most about being yourself? What is the thing you dislike most about being yourself? Okay. What is your greatest fear? What is your greatest fear? And what's your heart's desire? What is your heart's desire? And is there anything you'd like to tell the dreamer? Is there anything else you would just like to tell the dreamer? As you finish, look back over your answers. And again, just sort of say, any of those phrases, any of those answers nudge a little something in you. Is there some energy in any of that for you? Sometimes answers 3 and 4, like and dislike, are interesting because they combine to point out a tension maybe that you're experiencing somewhere in your life that particular image can help you find. And fear and desire, the 5th and 6th answers, sometimes those really do just hone in on something that's going on that wants to be seen and acknowledged. What I'd like to do, because I think that it's an interesting exercise to go, what happens when I associate? What happens when I, really dialogue and get into the energy of that image? Is you get maybe 2 different perspectives, and maybe those 2 parts of this exercise jive in some way to kind of give you a message about some aspect of your life that needs to be seen. Maybe they're really different, but again, they're connected. What I'd like to invite us to do now is just to go into breakout groups. You don't need to do soul-bearing conversations, okay? All you really need to do is just go, how did that feel to do that? All right. And again, you're using something I pulled out of the bag. When you do this with your own dream, it's going to be more emphatic. But let's just see what happened. So this is not a highly structured assignment, okay? But just sort of look at what came up and what you would want to name for yourself as being something significant. Or it may be that actually nothing came up and this is not your thing. So that's fine too. Casey, do you want me to put it, or do you want to do that?
Well, if you can, you're welcome to, or I can. I just don't know how many breakout groups
I was
you'd like.
thinking we'll do 2. And I'm looking for the big number.
Okay, I've got it. I can assign 2 breakout rooms automatically.
Oh, let's do groups of 2. Let's just have chats of 2. Okay.
Chapter 2.
For the
Okay.
introverts, yay, introverts. This is your time to.
We'll have what do we have? 8 breakout rooms. Do we have 16 people here?
Yeah, and I'm happy to be in. I'm happy to be in if that helps. So just see what rose up for you and questions that you have, because I want you to have a chance to kind of articulate your questions too.
And how long would you like us to be in breakout
rooms?
groups?
5 minutes. Let's just do 5 minutes. Of course, I'm kind of curious. I always love to give people a chance to go, yeah, anything come up that you want to talk about? That of course, you have to talk about you and not your conversation partner, but that you want to just name to the group, because there's something that came up in my conversation I wanted to name as a wider issue that's kind of fun. Anything that you don't want to? You look more alive and awake. Is that Jill? Did you want to?
I just thought it was interesting how much came up for me with just something as plain and simple as a ladder. It felt pretty profound to me, even though it wasn't, of a dream per se.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. this stuff just, once you sort of say, and when it does come up in a dream, I mean, that is really for you, and you'll feel that energy. And I mean, it's impossible to work on everything. That's really not healthy. Okay. But the things that carry some energy for you, you can spend a little time with and notice. And if you're writing your dreams down and keeping track of them, you'll go, oh my goodness, that's the third ladder I've seen, in this month. What's going on with this, working with levels or being up high or whatever it is for you that's bringing up. It's helpful to have a dream partner or be in a dream group because they will notice things that you don't. And I just remember people saying things like, that is the third time you've been standing on a precipice barefooted in the last 3 weeks, and you think, oh, I should have picked up on that, but it was too scary. I didn't want to see it. So other people can see it too for you, and that's helpful. Anybody else want to say anything?
Well, I shared with you already, but I like to share. I was thrilled with working with the ladder. I brought up, as I shared with you, childhood memories of a bunk bed that I shared with my brother, and climbing up on top and laying down and feeling more connected to him. And then that was sort of the complement or inverse of my initial experience of the ladder, which was connecting from the lower to the higher, and kind of getting a bigger expanded experience by going up the ladder and connecting to something bigger and more open.
Yeah.
So,
great. Thank you. Because it's like, oh, that's two different kinds of connection. Yeah.
yeah.
The ladder just, I mean, you go, oh, dreams, they're going to just keep unfolding. And you just kind of work with your intuition to kind of feel like, well, where am I being led to see right now? I am curious if anybody had, and I don't know, Todd, would that be okay if I talk about that synchronicity?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So one thing that came up in our conversation was that Todd had recently he's more in touch with his brother now, and he even invited his brother to this dream thing. Okay. So that connection is more emphatic recently and exploring some things. And I just wanted to say, once you start doing this work, it's so much, I think it's fun. It can also kind of freak you out that you'll start seeing these things. People will go, oh my goodness, there's that again. That's happening on that show. And I just passed a billboard and it showed up in my yard. And what is going on? Am I going crazy? You're not going crazy. You're opening up you can see past what your normal sort of sight range is and start to see with your heart as well as with your eyeballs. And that's called synchronicity when those things start showing up. I had a great one today. I was talking to a dreamer, and anytime I mention this, I've got permission to talk about it. But I was talking with a dreamer yesterday who was, working with a hard dream. And she goes, I just want to dream about bunnies. And I said, I was kind of being the, good luck with that, sort of like you're here to work, And then, but I felt kind of bad about that, because we all get a bunny dream every now and then, something just pleasant and, it's not all hard work and trying to change. So today on my email feed comes the image of the month from the Eris. It's like a Jungian imagery sort of, I don't know, this whole like warehouse of imagery, and they send you something. Okay, guess what? It's image after image of bunnies because it is actually the year of the rabbit on the Chinese calendar. And I mean, it was bunnies. And I sent it to her and I'm like, okay, happy that I got to just sort of notice this and be the one who hands it over. Bunnies are you. So enjoy enjoy it. But that kind of thing happens a lot, and it's exciting to feel like, oh wait, I'm sort of tracking into something that is real, there is this energetic force going on. It's like going, oh, gravity, and playing with it, and just write that down too, like you would write down a dream. Take a picture if it's something out in the woods. And you don't have to understand it all at once. We're not going to understand it all at once. It's a gradual unfolding, right? It's like that one little bud, that comes up and unfolds slowly. But you're inside a process of just deep personal development, and it's guided. It's deeply guided. And it may not make sense for a long time, which is why you keep writing these things down, and you give them a title and a date and a few notes about what's going on in your life, in your waking life, because dreams are on some level about what's going on in waking life. And there's a really practical level to that, but they're also about deep process over time. So, and I was talking with there's a wonderful woman, Joyce Hudson, who wrote a book called Natural Spirituality. And she was commenting recently. She said, I've started this practice in which every day after I write down my dream, if I have a dream, I go back and read what was going on a year ago. What was I dreaming a year ago? And she says, it's amazing to kind of note, because you can see more about what that dream may have been presenting. And then you have the context of a year. And I do a workshop on, just looking at a season of dreams and what your life, what you've been telling yourself about what that season of your life was about. And then looking at the dream story, because it's always much more gracious and much more vast and rich than what we tell ourselves about ourselves. But I like this little every year practice, kind of look back a year. So I would like now to jump over and do a little bit of group dream work with y'all, because it is so much fun. And I just want you to know what that feels like. Okay. So like, how in the world do you do this together? And there's one really good rule. And I think anytime you're ever talking with a dreamer, you need to do this. So this is the one rule. If you're going to make any kind of comment about another person's dream, you need to acknowledge that you have no idea, right? What is going on with them. You say, well, in my dream, that means you've taken the time to enter their dream, to try to dream it like it's your own, and you speak out of your experience of that dream. And that is the only honest way to do this. All right. It's just to say, well, in my dream, what I'm noticing. In my dream, I'm feeling. In my dream, I'm wondering. In my dream, I'm associating. But we never say you. It really wrecks the trust. It really doesn't feel good. That dream is speaking to you in a way that's particular to you. And just like that ladder went all over the place for us, so will any one person's dream go all over the place for other people. What is about for you is for you. But sometimes we need a little nudge, right? We need a little help seeing things. So group dream work is made to offer that in a way that is rich for everybody, but directive to no one. All right. So I'm going to give you the how we do that. And then I have a very short dream for us to play with. Okay, so share screen one more time. And this is called projective group dream work. Projection means when I say I am making that up. This is what's true for me, but it's not true for you. When you make that distinction between your own experience and someone else's, it's called projective. I don't like words. It's too Latinate for me, but that's what we call it. So the way this happens is the dreamer will tell the dream a couple of times, and then the group can ask clarifying questions, not personal stuff about the dreamer's own life, the dreamer's association. It's just like, get the movie straight. All right. Just so we're all watching the thing. At that point, after that, then we use on Zoom, the dreamer clicks off their camera so they can just receive without having to be reactive in the face of all this. And the group just kind of tries to everybody just sort of dreams it for a minute. They just kind of like take that dream in, like runs through it in their own imagination. And then we start, well, in my dream, and you start offering just these statements that come up, feelings that you have about it, things you're curious about, things you notice. Remembering that everything in the dream is a part of me. I'm going, yeah, this part of me, that part of me. I'm just kind of curious about that, right? Like the latter part of me. So you go on with that for, 20, 25 minutes. I mean, it goes on. And then we call the dreamer to come back to the circle, and then they can respond with whatever they want. If they want to talk about their personal stuff at that point and it feels like safe in the group, they can do that. Or they can simply say thank you. And then what happens is everybody's been moved. So it's important for everybody else to just write down at least, if there's time, you can speak it out loud, but just write down, so what has come up for you? What's yours to kind of work with and play with? Would you like to give this a try? It'll be a little bit short because it will be, but I'm going to tell you a dream, and this is one, and I always have permission to share dreams. So this one is called Houston, and it's just one scene. Okay, so I'll give it to you twice. So the dreamer says, I'm staring out the window at my neighborhood, and I'm also across the street seeing myself staring out the window of my duplex. It's on the side where my neighbor lives. I don't feel any emotions, just my neighborhood. And then the phone rings. I answer, I say hello, and the voice says, this is Houston. Instantly, it begins to pour down rain. That's the end of the dream.
Wow.
So I'll give it to you again. I'm staring out the window at my neighborhood. I'm also on the other side of the street, seeing myself staring out the window. It's my house is a duplex, and I am on the side where my neighbor lives. I feel no emotion. I'm just looking at my neighborhood. The phone rings, and this is from inside the house. The phone rings in the house, and I answer, hello. The voice says, this is Houston. And instantly it begins to pour down rain. So are there questions that you would like to get clear on? Yeah, Todd.
When you say in the dream that he's standing in the duplex, he's not in his side. He's in the duplex's other part that normally is occupied by his neighbor.
Right.
And that's where he is. Okay.
And it is a woman who's the dreamer. So she's looking out the window at the same time she's across the street, seeing herself looking out the window.
Gotcha.
And it is the neighbor's side. Yeah.
On the neighbor's side. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a bottom floor or top floor?
It's a one story. Yeah. One story.
And so when the phone rings, she is in the duplex, but on the opposite side. She's not across the street. When
right.
The phone rings.
So
Okay.
So as I understood it, the phone rings, the part of her that's inside the duplex answers it. Okay. And all this is being witnessed by the part of her that's across the street. Okay. So she's experiencing this from 2 points of view. The phone rings, and she hears this in her ear from inside the duplex. Yeah. Anything else?
When she's across the street, is she in the duplex across the street as well?
She's on the street. She's like on the sidewalk.
On the street. Okay.
Is it clouded out or is it clear?
That was my question.
Yeah, and I'm going to make this up because I don't know all those answers necessarily, but I'm remembering that it's kind of overcast, but not rainy, not thunderclouds. Kind of just that kind of grayness. The whole effect of the whole thing is just kind of gray skies, no feeling kind of thing. Was my remembering? Okay. Anything else? So this is one of these things that can go on. Oh, did you have something else, Deanna? I wanted to ask. Okay. So just sit with that for a minute and just sort of put yourself into it and let it kind of happen to you as though you're dreaming it. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to just make that leap. All right.
What's that leap now? What did you say?
Well, just to dream it as though it is your own dream. Yeah. Start to finish. All right. So let's just try this for a little bit. Just and no pressure to participate if you'd rather not, but just in my dream, what do you notice? And I thought of one thing that the dreamer said that is important. When she hears the voice say, "This is Houston," she felt very much that it was for her, even though she's in the neighbor's apartment. She felt like it was for her. So that's so what do you, in your dream, what stands out? What are you noticing, curious about associations? Deanna.
So in my dream, it feels like I'm not taking part in life. I'm missing out. I'm disconnected. Maybe living for others instead of living for myself and connecting to my own life. And so the call is calling me back to life and the rain is like to deal with my stuff. Like it's time to deal with my stuff and get back involved in life. Like I've been watching from afar, watching it happen, and then now it's time to get back in.
Okay, thank you. And so, yeah, beautiful. And if you feel that too, great. If you don't feel that too, great. And the dreamer is just listening to this. So if I were the dreamer, I would click out. So you don't see my face reacting, right? Because sometimes that gets in the way. Okay, who else has something to offer? Okay, Todd.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I tend to like to go a lot, but I don't want to inhibit somebody else who wants to talk because I've talked a lot already.
Well, you're warming it all up for us. So keep going.
Okay. Well, in my dream, I saw myself in the duplex, and then I shifted and was myself across the street, watching myself answer the phone. And in answering the phone, I felt the strong feeling in my heart, and the words came out of me with that feeling. I didn't know there was so much beauty in life.
Thank you.
That's just what happened.
In your experience. Thank you.
My dream, I associated, this is Houston with Houston. We have a problem with the space program. And so in my dream, I am wondering if there's something kind of big, maybe either in the works or that I need to really pay attention to. And then the pouring rain, I mean, it just makes me feel really curious about maybe big things that are at work that need my attention, and even the structures of like what are my inner structures, and kind of like you were saying, Deanna, where is there not enough that I need to pay more attention to in my dream.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
So if this were my dream, I would take a look at the fact that I'm living in a duplex and there's kind of a disconnect. I'm not a singular home, and that I'm even in the wrong side of the duplex. I'm not in my side. And I would be thinking that the rain is an expression, the dream. In my dream, I thought that I didn't have any emotion, but I think that the rain pouring down is telling me that this dream carries great emotion great sadness and great grief. And I think this is a dream about coming home and connection. Even the telephone is a form of connection, telling me that this is Houston, this is your home, come home. Kind of that's the sense I got. Let's connect.
Cool.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Yeah, y'all are good at this. What else comes up? Oh, Linda, you're muted. Y'all could go ahead. There you are.
In my dream, I also associated this is Houston with the Space Center, but it felt very reassuring. And then especially when the heavy rain came out of nowhere, and it felt more like a message in my dream that the things that I knew from other realms were in fact real, just like getting a message from space and then immediately there being an unexpected heavy rain. And it was kind of a nice message about the things that I tend not to want to believe are very real.
Thank you. Great. Anyone else?
So my dream felt very Charles Dickens. It felt like I was kind of visiting myself in the future or the past, the present, and this outside person is just standing out there, and I pick up the phone and I hear this is Houston, and the rain starts pouring, and I'm watching myself, and I run out in the middle of the street and start dancing.
Oh,
And I think, what am I doing in this house? I'm missing out on all the beauty of the rain. And it was really kind of cool. That was me.
I'm noting that a couple of y'all have like moved to the next, like gone forward, dreaming the dream forward, which is a really lovely spiritual practice too, is to go, where does that invite me next? That's an option. Sometimes it feels better to stay in the dream. And especially if it's difficult, sometimes you want to go, okay, really, what is that anxiety about? But yeah, that's the beauty of the rain. Any others?
In my dream, I had this sense of that I'm being seen, and it's in a good way. Like that someone, the caller, knows that I'm not in my own surroundings. And so it was almost this invitation of, inside yourself when you're not where you're supposed to be, when this doesn't feel like home. And so there was a sense of relief. And sometimes when I'm real tense and I feel relief, there's tears that come. So like if I go into meditation, sometimes I have tears come because there's just a sense of letting go of tension and of relief. So there was a sense for me in this dream of being seen.
I'm noticing that rain carried a lot of emotion for everybody who spoke, right? And a lot of times water is a picture of our emotional state. What is the water like in a dream? Can be a picture of what's our emotional state. How are we experiencing our unconscious is another part of that. And because I'm watching Our Time for Us, the dreamer herself said, because it is interesting to this is not right or wrong. This is not like, and here's the answer, because the dreamer was just beginning to get into something here. But her sense of it was that it was deeply comforting, although kind of shocking, to pick up the phone, and it was Houston. It felt, that could feel creepy, but what she felt was, she felt known, and she felt like there was a mission. Houston is always delivering these missions, and that it connected her from where she was to kind of the source of the mission this big experience in the heavens, and then the rain coming down, and it's all became real. Everything moved from kind of conceptual and theoretical to real. And I would just add, in my dream, the way I felt when I heard Houston, I felt like it was that self. Remember, we talked about that picture of the root, that self within us that kind of, here's a plan, here's the next step, and I love the idea of going out in the rain as the next step. I mean, getting real is the next step. But there's a mission. I know who you are. Dreams do that. Sometimes they let us know you are seen and known and loved and led and challenged and changed. And it's always, even if they're difficult parts along that journey, you're sustained by the sense of that vision and that purpose. And there are so many times just these little nods or these little bits that you go, okay, I'm not just making this up. Like Linda said, this is a piece of sustenance, and you can bridge. There's so much more to learn about, but bridging what is going on, your feelings about the dream images, about who you are in the dream. And frequently who you are in the dream is sort of your normal waking life, that lily pad self, that's it's going to get, it's in process. So that train left, sorry, but it is, I guess the point is hanging in there and letting yourself be, putting this in as one more way of practicing discernment, of practicing connection, of allowing yourself to be seen by those wisdom eyes that we carry inside ourselves. It knows us better than we do know ourselves, and that is ultimately, I believe, that voice of the divine that's luring us onward. I'm going to stop with one more little image because that's what turned up for you. These are the diving ducks. I love them. It's like, what do you find down there? But I just wanted to end with what we started with, was what goes on. There really is something going on in that green goo. And let that be our image. And the poet Ellen Bass has just one little thing, and it's so simple. This is why I chose this to read at the end. There's a part of every living thing that wants to become itself. The tadpole into the frog, the chrysalis into the butterfly, a damaged human being into a whole one. That is spirituality. So that is that's where I want to conclude for me talking, but I am happy do we even have a minute? We don't even have a minute or two, but if you want to stay, I'm happy to answer some questions. You're not compelled to stay. I also am going to send you the little handout. One thing I wanted to also say is I run these dream groups. The one that we're going to start from the Wisdom Tree starts next week, and it's same hours, 6 weeks in a row. And if you're interested, let us know and I will be in touch. And so we could do 6. If there's more than 6 people who want to do this, especially if somebody wants a daytime, we can add another one. I don't have any more nights left, but we could do a daytime one as well. So just throwing that out there, and happy to be in conversation. The one thing about being in a dream group, I just want to say, it's not a place where we bring our, where we bring really sort of hot issues that are deeply personal and need to be processed alone. That's not what it's for. It's, as you saw how it worked. It's for that kind of exploration. It's very deeply meaningful, but it's not the place to bring, your surfacing traumas, that kind of thing. Although the dreams are so helpful for any psychological, psychospiritual stuff you've got going on. So that's just my one caveat, but happy to talk with any of you. And I'm going to pause there.
And I want to say before some of you sign off, if you do, thank you so much, Laura. Thank you so much for this class and for the ways that you have invited us to discover some wisdom even tonight that we can take with us. And there are openings. There are a few openings for her dream group that starts next week. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you would like to be part of that. We also have coming up, we also have on Thursday at noon, an online class on centering prayer and meditation that I'll be facilitating. You're welcome to join me for that. You can sign up for that on Wisdom Tree Collective's website. So thank you so much. If you need to leave, go ahead. If not, we'll stick around for a little bit and let Laura.
Thank you so much for participating. I love just seeing you all jump in. Thanks.